So we divided this into, what was the current state, and then Alana covered a number of the research opportunities or limitations that are going on. And then I'm going to finish up with sort of the clinical end of it. And this is the same publication, Nature, that decided to vote against the 2020 deadline, made another mistake, and they gave me 2 pages of their journal to present my opinions on what we should be doing. That's always fun. We went through 8 revisions of it because apparently I have strong opinions. But let's just all get on the same page here. We start with drug discovery. That's years. Preclinical validation, and Alana was talking a lot about that. Phase 1 trials, this is mostly safety, okay? Phase 2, you're looking for some indication of efficacy. So what that usually means, particularly in the metastatic setting, is did the tumor shrink? Did progression-free survival extend? And only sometimes did survival extend. If positive, it goes to a phase 3 trial. This is the pivotal trial against current standard of care that usually goes then to the FDA for regulatory approval. And only then do things back up to the adjuvant setting, which, hello, is prevention of metastasis, okay? It's for women where we think we have disseminated tumor cells. We can't find metastases, as Alana said, and we're going to treat these cells and see what happens. This is prevention of metastasis. So why aren't we doing more of them? A, they're huge. B, they're expensive. C, they take a tremendous number of patients, okay? It is impractical to make a list of here's 100 drugs that we think might prevent metastasis and to say, oh, let's do adjuvant trials on them. It isn't going to happen. Believe me, I've tried. Okay, and then if that's successful, you end up with regulatory approval for treatment in the adjuvant setting. So what I want to do is take a detour. Because if you look at the literature, no, we don't know enough about metastasis or dormancy or all those topics. But yes, we have a lot of places where we could start. There's a literature out there. And the question is, if we can't bump them into adjuvant trials, how are we going to do it? Because these compounds are dying in traditional phase 2 trials. They are molecularly targeted agents. They're cytostatic. In other words, they excuse me, they hold signaling still. They don't kill the cell. They're not going to shrink a metastatic lesion. And so they're dying. I can give you a list of the ones that I've watched go. So what I proposed were 2 kinds of metastasis prevention trials, either concurrent with the phase 2 trial, before it or after it, let them argue over when it happens, okay? And I'm going to give you an example of each of them. One is primary metastasis prevention, okay? Sort of an adjuvant trial, but let's do it differently, that's cost-effective, patient-effective, and get an answer. And the second is secondary metastasis prevention. And this is, the concept is that these are women with treated limited metastatic disease. In both cases, the endpoint is not shrinkage of a lesion. It isn't going to happen. It is time to the development of a new metastasis. So let me give you an example of each. And this is a personal opinion, I admit, on where I think we can go and make some headway. And hello, the first example is dormancy, okay? So here is the experiment we did. We injected breast cancer cells into the mammary fat pad of mice. We gave them 2 days to recover, and we randomized the mice either to a drug, which is a lysophosphatidic acid 1 inhibitor, bet you've never heard of that, or vehicle. That's what you dilute the stuff in, okay? On day 10, we surgically removed the primary tumor. Same thing, a mastectomy basically. And then we keep it on going. And day 70, we're then looking at metastasis. So here is the imaging data of the primary tumors day 10. These are these little dots. And the more red it is, the bigger it is. These are a couple of vehicle-treated mice, a couple of drug-treated mice. There's just no difference. And based on that, every drug company who looked at this data said, not interested, because that's how drugs are validated, by the way. This is what they missed. When we came back on day 70, the vehicle-treated mice had metastases all over their body. That's all that blue everywhere. And the drug-treated mice had a whole lot less. This is what we're looking for, okay? Now, why do I think it's dormancy? This is the arrow. We asked how many of them are cycling, how many are in the cell cycle versus sitting there quiescent. And these are actually in the metastatic lesions. So here's a liver metastasis from one of these vehicle-treated mice. And every tumor cell has got a blue nucleus. If it's cell cycling, it's got a green fluorescence. So you can see that a proportion of these tumor cells are busy proliferating. This is a growing lesion. In the drug-treated lesions, these were the biggest liver mets we could find. Again, every tumor cell is blue. And here you can see one green dot and 2 or 3 green dots. But basically, these cells have exited the cell cycle and are sitting. Okay? This is the example I would propose for that primary breast cancer prevention initiative. This isn't going to go to an adjuvant trial. It's not going to shrink a metastatic tumor in a phase 2 setting. So what we're going to do is enroll patients with locally advanced breast cancers, large breast cancers that are coming in to undergo neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Now, neoadjuvant chemotherapy is the chemotherapy before surgery. And in some cases, when these patients go to surgery, there's no tumor left. That's called a pathologic complete response. And that has been used by the FDA as a new endpoint for approval of drugs. Pertuzumab was one. We're going to address the women who don't get a PCR. And believe me, that's the overwhelming majority of them. So there is still tumor left. It is resected. And we know that usually within 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of metastatic disease. That's the point where we can randomize these patients to plus and minus a metastasis preventative. See, it can be done. The end point is metastasis-free survival. Okay? That's primary metastasis prevention. Let's go to secondary. So again, the idea here is patients with treated, limited metastatic disease. And they are then randomized to placebo or the potential metastasis preventive. It's usually in combination with some standard of care. It's time to a new met. It's not shrinkage of the mets that are already there. It isn't going to happen. And this is a trial. This is work that it is in press in clinical cancer research. It's available online at this point. So we have a mouse model for brain metastasis of breast cancer. And by the way, this was done under a DoD Center of Excellence grant. And we've dosed 20-some drugs into these mice, and nothing has had more than a partial effect. We dosed a drug that is known it's a frontline activity for glioma, for primary brain cancers. And when we look, this is the typical dose you put in a mouse. We had 0 metastases. We did it again, we got 0 brain metastases. We actually did it 4 times. And then we started bringing the dose down, 0, 0, 0, 0. Each of these is an experiment. 0, 0, 0, 0. We were able to go down 1 log, okay? That's a lot, that's 10-fold. And still wipe out metastases in this model. Only when we went down 2 logs did we ablate its activity. So that's a bit of the preclinical data. And here is the secondary metastasis prevention trial. This trial is being developed by SWOG, one of the cooperative groups, and ask me, somebody write down what's holding up this trial. I would love to tell you. So these are patients with limited brain metastases, 1 to 3 brain metastases. They have been treated with SRS. That is radiation just to the metastasis, not the dreaded whole brain radiation. They are at very high risk for the development of additional metastases in the brain. And we are going to start with the HER2 positive population because the systemic disease is more controlled. We are going to randomize these women to standard of care, which is going to be trastuzumab. It's TDM1. It's the trastuzumab with the nasty stuff on the end of it, and temozolomide in a low-dose metronomic dose. In other words, a low dose frequently. Okay? Endpoint. It is not shrinking the 3 brain mets the woman already has. Not going to happen. We have radiation for that. It's the time to the development of a new metastasis, along with everything else. So what I've hoped to give you is an overview of if the Artemis project can come up with some good scientific ideas of what to do. How can we actually have the rubber hit the road? How can we actually take these ideas, get them in the clinic? And that is your responsibility too, because believe me, talking to US oncologists about new trial designs, I could talk to that wall just as easily. When I published that paper, I spent months flying across the Atlantic because the Europeans wanted to hear all about it. The US docs, not so much. This is the list of the people who have been so influential in the 2 projects that I showed you, including the people at SWOG that are trying to get this secondary brain metastasis prevention. And I show you 3 advocates that I have been so fortunate to work with. Musa Mayer, Leila Romeo, who is unfortunately deceased, and Helen Schiff. So thank you very much.